Hi, I'm Corey Lang, and in this last part of this mini tutorial series, we are going to be making the texture for this, as also with unwrapping. But first we're going to do the pillows, how we can bake the detail of the seams onto this low poly model. Next we will work on the mattress. Same thing, we'll rebake the seams on to the model, so there's no actual seams there. And then last we will finish up the frame by making the wood texture in Photoshop or tiling it, and then we will also go over and how to make like a mini alteration of it for the base here to make it darker. So let's get started. Alright, first thing we're going to do is there's going to be three things we're going to texture here. One is going to be the pillow, which we're going to start with, then the mattress, and then the bed frame. So first, what we're going to do to make this pillow low poly is we're going to duplicate it. We'll bring it here. We'll make a copy of it. Now what we're going to do is, instead of having this pillow here, all we got to do is delete the cloth modifier because we don't need it. If you hit 5 on the keyboard, it'll take you to element mode. So the pillar here is about 148 polys, which isn't bad. I mean, that's pretty good. But the thing that's giving a lot of polys is this seam here. You know, all this little detail. So what we need to do is to bake the detail of this seam onto this low poly pillow here. But first, we're going to duplicate it, because we're going to be doing the same process like we did here, where we had a high poly blanket and then we had like a lesser poly one. Same process. Except we're just going to hit Control V. It's going to say instance, but change that to copy. And then hit 5. And then you can delete the seams. Now if you look at it, it looked like nothing really changed. But that's because we have the low poly model right on top. And just to make things a little more simplified, we'll isolate this. So if you right click, hit isolate selection, and you have just this. So what we're going to do is with our low poly model is we're going to put an unwrap modifier on it. So first then what we're going to do is we're going to put seams somewhere. So if we hit 2 on the keyboard and we select our edges, and we'll select those. That's right one, right? Those two. Those two. We'll convert these to seams by hitting this right here. And if you want to get rid of these lines, just check map seams off. Then what we're going to do is we're going to ring here. So basically we're going to be cutting our pillow in half. Now the reason why we added seams here is because if we didn't add them and we tried to flatten this, like this top part, this right here, like practically all this on top would be distorted, because when you relax, your UVs will stretch improperly. So what we do to relieve that is add like a couple of corner seams. So once we have that, we have this, and you know, like a mirror image, just select your seams here. We'll convert those. And then we'll convert these. Now what we're going to do is hit 3 on the keyboard for face mode, and then you hit expand face selection to seams. And when you do that, it doesn't select everything, it just goes to your seams. Now let's see if this has it. Let me see if I got my utility map. Or at least we can use a check. You know, we'll just use a checker pattern. We'll just do that. Now, it doesn't look horribly distorted, but let's see if we relax it. Now when you look at it, there's like virtually no stretching. Or wait, hold on. There's like very little stretching. Though the planar mapping though didn't look too bad. I mean, it's stretching a little bit up and down, but we'll go back to here and then we'll relax. But this way will at least ensure that there's like very, you know, having very little stretching. So then we'll do the same for the bottom. Expand face selection to seams. And then we'll pelt. Start relax. And we'll put, for the padding, which is basically the space between your UV clusters, we'll make it 2, 0, 0, 0, and then 1. If you check those in, we'll hit pack normalize. You can see they're close together, but they're not touching, which is what we want. We'll put that right about here. And then we'll collapse that. So once we have that, let's rename this. We'll call this Pillow LP for low poly. And then we will select this one and put Pillow HP for high poly. And then just for the hell of it, we'll just make a duplicate of the low poly one. We'll just call this Pillow. We'll apply our texture to this one just so we can leave these together. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to select our low poly one, and like in the last tutorial, we'll hit 0 for render to texture. As soon as it loads. Alright. We'll go to options, uncheck this. We'll leave padding at 2. I don't see the point in changing it. We'll add a diffuse map. And then we want shadows from the ambient occlusion. And then for the background, we'll do this. But then also we need to select what we're projecting, which we're going to pick. And then that's where the menu pops up, and we look for Mesh Pillow HP for our high poly. So if we go to our cage, go to shaded, we'll reset, because sometimes when you put a cage on here, it'll distort to holy hell, which doesn't look right. So if you hit reset, it'll put the cage like right on the model, but then we'll push the amount until like the previous tutorial where the shaded gray will cover everything. Just check and make sure there's no cuts or anything, like nothing's bleeding out. Alright, then what we do is we'll go hit 0. We'll have that, we'll leave that open. I'm sure we have to make sure we have that material, that ambient occlusion material. If you don't have that here, go to your materials. See if it's in my scene materials. Come on. Alright. We had this. What you do is you just make a standard material. Here, I'll just call this capital A-O. And then what you're going to do is change your renderer to mental ray. Well, I have mine set to mental ray, but you pick mental ray. And then for this, you will go, your material selection will change. We'll go here, and then we'll put this into the diffuse. We'll double click right here, set this up to 100, because we don't want that default shading there. And then for this, we'll set the samples to 128, a spread of 1.15, and then max distance of about 20 feet. And then what you do is you go to your render setup. It'll be like, this will probably say like empty here. There'll probably be nothing here, but you check this, and then you go to your material editor, and then you drag this right here, and you instance it. So any change you make to this one will make the effects here. Now this override will go over all materials in the scene. So once we have that, we'll hide those. Here, let me get rid of that. I just want to show how to make that again. Alright, so once we have that, we will then make a render. We should have everything. Yeah, and you hit render. Oh wait, hold on. One other thing too, just in case if you don't have it set up. You want to set your folder, because the file, your ambient occlusion file, has to output somewhere. So what I usually do is I go to my scene folder. That's where it has all of your max files and your scenes and your textures and everything. I make a new folder and I call it bake, and then I select it. And then you hit render. I just ignore that. I'm going to pause the video here. I made a little error. What we're going to do, the ambient occlusion map didn't come out particularly that right. What we're going to do is just we're going to isolate this in its own scene, so that way we have no lights interfering with it. Because I don't want to delete these. I want to leave them. So that's an easy fix. Just select your three objects. Go to edit. Well, first, just to make sure, let's hit unfreeze all. So you can select everything and then unhide all. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select our three objects, and then we'll go to edit, select invert, and then we'll just delete it. And then what we'll do is just save a separate scene. You know, instead of deleting the lights, doing everything, and then once we're done with our texture, remaking the lights, it just seems more efficient just to make like a little mini scene. So we'll just put like BD pillow text, and that'll be our scene. So then what we'll do is like select our object, and also, because we don't need it, is we can turn this off just for now, the indirect illumination, and then we will render that out. Alright, I'm going to pause the video again. Alright, so once we have that, we have this, which does not look like this. And you notice my view probably moved a little bit. That's because I paused the video and checked to make sure this worked. So, once we have that, we will go into Photoshop, which I then opened it already when I was checking it. Okay, so then, you didn't see that. Okay, so once you do, is you go to open, and then you go to your folder, in which you go to your bake folder and you select the object we baked, which was our mesh pillow LP, which is a low poly, our diffuse map. We hit open. Now what we could do to make this a little better is we can add a an adjustment layer. And then what we can do is maybe up the contrast a little bit. Here, delete that. We'll do it this way. We'll go up to Image, Adjustments, Brightness, Contrast. And we'll up to about like, 50. I'll turn the brightness down just a tiny bit. And then we'll have this, and then what we're going to do is we're going to save to our scene assets, images. Oh, first let's save a PSD file. We'll call this pillow 1K because it's 1024, and we'll just, whoop. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Not a JPEG. I meant to do a PSD. Alright, let's try this again. Pillow and then just 1K. Alright, then once we have that, we will save this to our scene assets. Underscore DIF for diffuse. And we'll pick a reasonable size. We'll do that one. Alright, then what we're going to do is go back into Max. We'll move this out of the way. Turn that off. Go to Render Setup. We'll turn this back on, and then we'll turn our material override. Because if we try to render it, it's going to look like we applied an ambient occlusion and everything, which we did. We'll go to our material and make our material editor or slide editor and make our material. Select that. You want to select your low poly one, the one that just says pillow. And then we'll assign the material. And then for basic viewing, we'll do that. Also, let's name this. Alright, so then once we have that, what we can also do to make this pillow look a little softer is give it, because if we auto smooth it, it kind of looks a little strange, like there's a hard line there. So then what we'll do is we'll hit 5 on the keyboard, select everything, and then we'll just select one and we'll turn that off. It just makes it look a little bit softer. And if you look at it, this is our pillow. Now what we could do, if we want, is we can bake out a normal map, which we have done for the blanket. So what we'll do is we'll just turn that off because we don't need to make another diffuse map, and we'll just make a normal map. And then we will hit render. We'll go back in Photoshop. We'll go to Open, go to our Bake folder. And that is completely wrong. Okay, figure it out. Apparently all you gotta do is just like what we did before, except just turn your override material back on. And if you want, you can turn your sample per pixel up so you can make it look less noisy on the edges, for the normal map. And then what you do is you just hit render, after you make your normal map. So I'm going to pause the video again. Alright, once we rendered everything out, we'll go back into Photoshop and we'll open up our normal map, which should be right here. So then we'll drag this out, hold shift down, and I'll put it exactly right on top. So once you have that, we'll name this norm, and then we'll name this as AO. We'll save our PSD file out, and then we'll save our normal map out. And do our scene assets, images, and we'll put that right here. We'll hop back into Max. We'll close this. We'll put that back. We'll turn that back on, and then we'll turn the material override off just to see what our map looks like. We'll go here. We'll make a bump. Go to standard, normal bump, and then we pick our bitmap. And there's our pillow. So what we can do is just leave this here, and then we'll just save our scene here, and then we'll open up our main scene. So we'll save that. The next thing we'll do is we'll go back here, and then we'll import our pillow. So you go to import and then merge, and then we select our scene file we made, and we select our pillow. Here, let's just call it that for now. Whoop. And there you have it. You got the pillow, which is low poly, which is our original 148 polygons, like we said. And there's our seam. However, though, we will put this here. You can either you need to delete it, or you can hide it. I'm going to delete it, but if you want to hide it, you can right click and just hit hide selection. That's totally up to you. Then I'll move this over here. I'll align. Alright, and then what we'll do is we'll just turn this a little bit. And yeah, once we have that, we'll work on the mattress next. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did before, where I unhit, well, first let's save this. Here, for you, I'll make a finished. Or we're not done yet, but you know, let me, just so I don't save over the start file. What I'm going to do is like what we did before. We just, you know, unfreeze all, unhide all, select our mattress, and then do the select invert, which is Control I, and then just delete, and then we'll just save this, and we'll call this our mattress text. You'll soon realize that it's actually very similar to what we did with the pillow, except we need to make the seams and unwrap it. First though, we'll call this LP for low poly, and then you know what we could do, I'll just make a duplicate here. And then I don't know if you remember the pillows, how we made the seams. Oh, and we can delete the cloth because we don't need it. It's not in that, is it? And it is. Alright, we'll delete that. and then we will make the seams. So we'll turn off soft select because I know we were making the bed a little more softer looking. We will ring, or not ring, sorry, loop. That's that one. Alright. Now you can choose if you want to make like a seam from like here to down here. That's up to you. I'm gonna do it. Oh wait, it would also help if I actually put an Unwrap modifier on it first, though. That might help. Okay, sorry about that. Well, let's select these first. Alright, once we have that, we'll select those. Or, wait. Wow. Brain not working is not. We're making the seams first. Alright, once we have that. Oops. Alright. We'll just loop that. Here, just oop. Nope. We'll just deselect those. We'll deselect those two. Alright, so once we have that, we will do a create shape from selection. And then what we're going to do is select the spline we made, see what it looks like. And then we'll have that. Make it a little bit thinner, maybe like something like 0.18. Now once you have that, we will just convert this to a poly, and then we will attach. And yeah, it's very similar like the pillow, and then we basically just do the same thing. We'll put HP for high poly, and then we'll make a duplicate of the, well, first we have to unwrap it, otherwise it won't work. So now we'll unwrap it. We'll hide those. Alright. Alright, I did delete the bottom. Alright. Yeah. I'll just loop those. Make those seams. Yeah, if there's like minor distortion, don't worry about it. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just that if you had like faces like, you know, if you had like something like, you know, like this won't work. But if it's mostly looking like the checker pattern, you're pretty good. You shouldn't have any problems. We'll shrink this down. Alright, then we'll collapse it. And then like the same thing before, we'll make a duplicate. We'll just call this Mattress. And then we will select our low poly, hit 0. Go down here, make an add diffuse. 1024, we want a white background. We want the shadows. We want it to output into a source. We don't need that. And then we'll pick our high poly model. Yeah, as you can tell, it doesn't, like I was saying, it's the default caging usually doesn't look pretty good. So you just hit reset. And then you can move the cage by pushing. And if you also like want to move the points individually, if you hit one on the keyboard, you can move them. You know, if you want. Or you can use the push. Alright, and then once we have that, we will do the same thing as before. First though, we need to make sure our that's turned off and we have our material made. Here, because I made it before. I'll turn that back on just to make sure it's in there. Okay, and then once you have everything set up, you just hit render. Alright, once we have that, we have this, which once again won't look like this. Now, if you wanted to, you can add the normal map, and then you can render them together if you want. You know, leave both of these checked. But, you know, we'll leave that just for now, just so we can see what the normal map looks like. So what we'll do is we'll open this up in Photoshop. Go to our bake folder, and then we'll pick our mattress, low poly, and we have this. Call this mattress 1K, and then we'll save it out. Now if you want, you could put like designs on it, like patterns, you know, like painting it. Alright, then once you have that, you can make the material. Standard, diffuse, we'll drag in our bitmap. Show standard viewport map, and then we'll assign. And then yeah, there's your mattress right there. Now if you, like I said, if you wanted to add like a pattern, what you can do to read the UVs is like what we did before, where we went the tools, we did render UV template, 1024 by 1024. You know, save this out. You know, I usually put mine in render output, so you would just save like a JPEG, and then we'll call this like mattress UVs. Go to Photoshop, and then you go to open. You save it here, and then what you can do come on, open. Okay. Then you hold shift and you can drag it. Then if you have like a colored mattress, like let's say you have like, here, let's just say we have this colored. Whoop. Yeah, let's see, we overlaid it or multiplied. You know, something like that. You can say, okay, here's my UVs, and then you could screen it over. And then this is what the Mac sees on your textures, how it interprets, and you can paint anything on it. If you notice, our seams are right on the part we picked right here, or on the corner here. Then you can toggle it on and off if you want to see it. And I kind of like this color. I'm going to leave it. I mean, I know a lot of mattresses don't, you probably won't see that, but why not? Pick this flesh colored. But yeah, I mean, you can pretty much put anything on it if you want. But once you have that, like what we did before, we save. We'll open up our, well, I'll open up the finished file, not the start file. And then we'll just do the same thing as we did before, where we import and we merge it, and then we select our mattress. See right there, see there's the mattress, the little picture. And I'll probably say, you know, you have the same, yeah, you have the same file name. I will just put like an A for now. And then you hit merge. And then we will use the align selection tool with these settings, because you want the pivot points and in X, Y, and Z. And then you have that. We don't need that one. We can just delete that. Now you can't see it, but you know, I'm just showing it just for the sake of like knowing how to do, you know, how to make the mattress. But I didn't make the normal map, but the normal map's the same thing we did. So what you can do, I forgot to do that. Yeah, I'll save my changes. But yeah, same deal, where if you go to your, yeah, so you can just turn this back on, and then there you go. You know, turn that on, and then you can use your normal map. You can hit render, and then you load your normal map up, and then what you do is you save out your map. Alright, once we have everything, I opened my pixel samples. I'm going to reset those. We'll turn material override off, and then we'll go back into Photoshop. Open up our normals. We'll drag and drop. And we will call this norm. Let's call this color, and then we'll call that AO. Alright, so what we do is we'll save out our normal map. There you are. And then we'll save our PSD file. So once you have that, you can actually just leave the scene and just go back to our go back to this, and then we could just apply it to this material. And also how to fetch material is you go down here, use the slider bar, and then we find our mattress material we made, and you instance it. Basically, these are all the materials in your scene. See, there's our blanket, there's our mattress, and there's our pillow. If you want, here, let's get our pillow out. The easy way of making a specular map. not really the most accurate way, but it's quick. This will make a color correction. Now, of course, because it's white, it's very specular, so we'll lower it. So maybe like a 10, and then we'll probably like make the glossiness like a 5. And we'll hide that, and then we can do the same thing here, where we make a color correction. Again, I mean, you can make like another specular map inside of like Photoshop. I'm kind of picking the easy way out. And maybe a little higher. Maybe something like that. Could probably be like that Tempur-Pedic material, you know. But once we have that, we now have our materials for here, for the pillow and the mattress. And then the last thing we will do for this tutorial, this mini tutorial series, is we'll make the wood grain for this, which actually isn't that difficult if you think about it. But gonna pause the video for a second. I paused the video for a second because I need to get a wood texture. I usually go to CG Textures, but just to get like a sample of it, and then I tile it myself or add any sort of detail. But I mean, you kind of get textures from a lot of places. I mean, that's just one of them. I mean, this is what I'm using just for example. So what you can do, we'll make a tileable texture first for the bed frame, and then we will unwrap it. Unwrapping it, because it's a very basic object, it's actually pretty simple. You just have to make sure the wood in the UV space is facing the right way. Otherwise, like let's say for like here, for example, let's say here, right here on the bottom, the base, you don't want your wood pattern going this way. You want it going this way horizontally. I'm sure there are bed frames out there that have wood grains going up and down, but I guess odds are most frames, if it's, you know, like long, it'll most likely be going this way. But again, I mean it depends. So what we'll do is we'll do an offset. Well, first I have to resize the texture to 1024, and then we will do an offset of 512. Now up in this line is actually pretty good, but over here though, we'll up this up. See what we got. Stay with the grain. You know, to get rid of that ugly seam. Alright, then we'll merge, and then we'll hit Control F. That will repeat your offset. And yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm going to use like more of a darker wood. So what we're going to do, I mean, you could probably leave it this way. I'm going to throw this texture in the scene in the Max folder under the archives, but you can use like colorize. You can use any color you want. Maybe you want like more of a vivid brown wood, or maybe like more yellowy. Or maybe you want it just a little bit darker than normal. I mean, it's entirely up to you, but I mean, it's preference of colors. Or blue wood, which is kind of unusual. But yeah, I'm going to use like just a basic, like brown wood. And maybe you can add like another like brightness contrast. Or perhaps like levels. You know, up the contrast. But once you have that, I'm going to save it to my folder. We'll just call this fine wood. I mean, this is like a quick, you know, just a quick way of tiling, you know, something. Here, JPEG will do fine wood, and then we will call this diffuse. And that's pretty good. Alright, so what we do is first we don't need this. So what we're going to do, actually to make this easier, it'll probably look really bizarre at first, but you'll see why. Why I'm applying the material first. We'll call this fine wood. Then we will put a diffuse. Here, we'll do like a basic color correction. Let's see. Kind of like it that way more. Gives it more of like a mini texture. Here. You can up the brightness a little bit if you want. Or the contrast. Give it kind of like a more textured look. Maybe like a slight bump. You don't want it being like super bumpy, but here we'll show standard. Then we'll hide the unused nodes. And then we will apply it to our bed frame. No, I was going to say, like, why is it not letting me apply it? Yeah, it looks kind of bizarre right now because we haven't unwrapped it yet. But what you can do, let's just see like how this works. Let's we'll do a flatten mapping. Now what you want to make sure, if you hit F2, they'll get rid of the red look, and then we'll uncheck that. Now what you can do is play around with like the settings here. Like here, this is what I was talking about before. Like you don't want your bed frame kind of looking like that. I mean, it probably could, but I usually think this looks more correct. And yeah, these two things. Here, we'll take these two. We'll just keep them together. And then you can turn them sideways. If you hold control down, it'll do increments of 5. You know, when you rotate. This looks more correct right there. And then we can look at the top. But yeah, I mean, once you have this, you know, we'll turn this. You can even make like maybe like a second texture if you wanted to for like the maybe for like the bottom here. Like what I did here where I was playing with the levels and the colors. Like what you can do is maybe make like the brightness darker if you wanted to. And then like maybe like make another material. Like duplicate the material and replace this. Make like for here, call it like fine wood 2, and then you can apply it. You know, you can collapse it, and then you can apply it to here. You know, having like a darker wood on the bottom, if you wanted to. Like, let's say I want to use this. Made it a lot darker, but you can call it like fine wood. You know, fine wood B. Like you don't need to make like if you had like normal maps, like you wouldn't need to make like a second one because it's the same thing. But what you can do, just duplicate or hold shift and then drag, and you can call this like matte fine wood B, and then you could say like, all right, I'll use my darker one that I made, which is right here. You know, leave everything the same, but you can select this. Here, we'll move this right here, and then you can drag, drop your material. Oops, and that looked weird. But yeah. Here. Yeah, maybe you can add like another pillow, perhaps. But yeah, I mean that's it's basically kind of it for the tutorial. Like you can add like other things to the pillows, maybe like your own patterns, or to the mattress. But I hope you enjoyed this mini tutorial series. There'll be more tutorials coming. I just have to decide what I want to, you know, make the tutorial on. But when I do make the next one, I'll see you there. And have a good day.